Morning everyone. It is July 7th and my garlic is ready for me to harvest the scapes. So garlic is a bulb, of course, which also means that it flowers. Pardon me. So when it's starting to flower, let's see if I can show you really good here. You get this stem here. Sorry, I had to flip you around here. So what you get is these curls. So you get the stem, comes up, forms a circle, and then if you don't cut this off, this part right here will open up into a blossom. But we don't want these to flower because we want them to form the bulb so that we can harvest the bulb as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of these off, and then we're going to try to can them. So this isn't difficult. You're just going to cut them literally right here. Done. Normally I would have two hands so it wouldn't fall on the ground, but I've got you guys to hold on to. So you just go along. Oh, I missed. Can't see. And cut it off. And that is your garlic scape. There we go. All done. It only took a couple of minutes. And I got an entire bowl. So let's get in the kitchen. All right, I'm all cleaned up, washed up, clean shirt, because the dogs cuddled me very thoroughly. And I'm in my kitchen ready to start. This is a new recipe for me. I have pickled garlic before. I actually grabbed a jar from my pantry to show you. So there. Last year and the year before, I think, we pickled garlic. It's absolutely fantastic. I think this one has Italian seasoning in it. You don't have to put any seasoning in. That's just what the recipe said, and I was like, cool, let's do it. It's fine. So yeah, that was last year. We'll be doing more of that this year. I absolutely love doing it this way because we put in the effort at the time of harvest to peel all of the cloves. So when it comes to cooking dinner, I just pop the lid and scoop out as many already peeled, ready to go cloves as I want. And we use a lot of garlic. When a recipe says 1 clove of garlic, they're lying. They mean 1 bulb. So anyways, so you just scoop it out, chop it up, throw it in your spaghetti sauce or whatever. And it's absolutely fantastic that way. Super easy. I like putting in the effort at the start of the process rather than doing the daily effort, because cooking for a family, of course, we all know it's so much work, and we want our families to eat healthy, and healthy food takes time. So if I can shorten that process by, spending an afternoon peeling all the garlic for the year, so be it. We're much more likely to eat healthy if healthy is easy. So, and this way none of the garlic spoils either. I hate storing garlic as bulbs. I think it's too humid here. And so you end up with cloves that have gone soft and just get wasted. So anyways, so that's what I do with those. So this year we are expanding that out and we're doing the scapes. So here's my bowl full of garlic scapes that I just harvested. So I've gone down to my storage room and pulled all my canning stuff out. This is my first canning session of the year. So I have the dishwasher running there with, I think I put 15 500 ml jars in. So this is a brand new dishwasher to me. I'm not sure if I can figure out the settings enough to keep them hot in there. The previous dishwasher did not have a steam or sanitize setting that I could just leave the jars in there hot. So I've been using the oven since I moved here. So if I can figure that out, I'll leave the jars in there steaming hot, sterilized. If not, I'll move them to the oven, turn the oven on. So I do reuse rings. Everyone reuses rings, okay? Check the inside, make sure there's no rust. That's where you'll get rust forming. And then check and make sure that it's not been dented or damaged. And personal choice, you don't have to. I do reuse the flat part of the lids as well. They're way more likely to be damaged, so I always have extra on hand because if they're damaged at all, I have a few damaged ones here to show you. See this one, not sure if you can see that. There's some rust on it, so I won't use that one. The kids just wash them and put them in the drawer for me, so I have to check them. This one over here, see it's dented, so that won't seal. So as I go through, I just discard those ones. And then I found a whole bunch that actually look like they may not have ever been used. That does happen in this kitchen too. If the kids are helping and there's stuff left over from a canning session, they're undiscerning about it. They're just like, that's where the lids go. So they just throw them all in the same drawer. So this is one of the ones here you can see. I don't think that's ever been used. I think it's a brand new one. So yeah, so they're all sterilized and clean. Rings are clean, ready to go. What else? Pickling is a water bath process, not pressure can. I do both. Follow the book, do what your mama taught you, do what your grandma taught you. No judgment here. I've had to learn all of this on my own because even though my mom did can some, she was very busy running her homestead. So and now I'm doing it and I'm like, oh, I see why mom didn't spend all that much time canning, because you know she was milking the goats and managing the herds and wrangling chickens and everything else, right? So yeah, so I've taught myself a lot using books, of course, and I've also taken a pressure canning class from my friend Adele. And so, oh, I can't even reach it, I'm so short. I do have the standard ball canning book. That's what I use. I've got all my recipes up there. That's what I use for most things. And then of course, we have the internet in our hand all the time. So go ahead and, you know, pick up your phone and search for a recipe. You'd be amazed what's out there. When I find a recipe that I like, I print it and I have my recipe binder. So these are all in plastic coverings. This is one from last year. Raspberry jalapeno jam, absolutely delicious. So then I write on them, and you know, whatever measurements aren't quite right or whatnot, I keep them in there. So this is a new recipe, found it online, not in a book, from Serious Eats. Here you go. I will try to remember to post the link for the site on the video. And yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I think I have everything ready. I always say that and then I realize I've forgotten something. So this recipe calls for Scapes, of course, pickling salt, available at any grocery store. This is dill seeds, the actual dill seeds that I plant. There's no trick here. When you buy dill seeds in the spice section, it is literally the seeds that grow dill plants. So harvest your own, save your own, it's easy. Black peppercorns and vinegar. And if you're in any canning groups, you've probably seen the posts about different dilutions of vinegar. Check in your book, check at the store and whatever, and you'll see that there's different. Can you read that? Am I too far? This is 5%, which is what you need for pickling, but there's also different percentages. I think there's a 2% for cleaning, and that's not usually in the grocery section here. It's usually in the actual cleaning section. So anyways, just read it. It's not new. I think it's just a bunch of people started canning over the last couple of years and suddenly realized that there's different acid levels of vinegar. There are. It's not a problem. It's not new. Make sure you get the 5%. It's done. So when I looked at some of these recipes online, some of the people had chosen to spiral the scapes into the jar. So it was like lining the outside of the jar. I'm not doing that because then when I take them out, I have to cut them up to use them, and I don't like doing that. So I've gone ahead and pre-cut them. I washed them, made sure they're all good, and read through the recipe. And this is a hot pack recipe. So there's two different ways to do canning. You've got your hot pack and your cold pack, and that's mostly for pressure canning. So with water bath canning, you never want to have cold jars or cold lids. And if you pour cold liquid into the hot jars, they'll break. So you have hot water bath, hot jars, hot lids, hot brine. The brine does not include what you're pickling. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix up the ingredients. I mix them into my wok, and then I cook it on the stove to get it nice and steamy hot. I did figure out my dishwasher, I think. It's still running and they should still be hot. Oh boy. Anyways, it's on a Sani rinse cycle, sanitizing. Is that what it is? And it's got the little thermometer and the arrow up, so hot temperature. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up the brine and get that good and hot. The canner is full. Little time saver tip here, fill it with hot water, don't fill it with cold water. So water's in there, lids and rims. Also, I'm canning on a gas stovetop. So I've learned the hard way that if I open the kitchen windows and I get a cross breeze through, it lowers the temperature. I guess it blows on the flames and it literally cools the pot. So it's harder to keep things at a boil. So I don't open the windows, as hard as it is, when I'm canning. So the recipe calls for the scapes, 1 teaspoon of dill seeds, a half teaspoon of whole black peppercorns, a cup plus 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I'm using regular vinegar. It's up to you. Apple cider vinegar has gotten very expensive, so for pickles it doesn't seem to make much difference in my opinion, so I'm not bothering. And 1 tablespoon plus 1.5 teaspoons of pickling salt. I know there's math behind what they do, so that's fine. So I've actually doubled that recipe because that is enough for 2 jars. And I'm looking at what I have there. I think it's a solid 4 jars that I have, maybe 5. So with the vinegar, which is 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons, so I'm actually going to round it up to 3 cups to make sure that I've got enough brine because it has to be hot. So I don't want to have to stop and do an extra little bit. I'd rather have a little bit extra than not enough. So let's do 1. 2. And 3. And let's heat that up. There we go. So the water bath is heating up, the lids are hot. This is going to heat up. The jars are hot. So timing wise, I'm just waiting really for the water bath to completely heat up to a rolling boil. And the brine, of course. And then we can can them up. All right, jars are sanitized, brine is ready, water bath is boiling. So I'm gonna go ahead, they're very hot. Fill up these jars. I pulled out 6, I think. Should be able to fit into 4. partial jar, that's fine. Just can it with the rest, and even if it seals, stick it in the fridge. And just use that one first. It's okay to push them down a bit. Just know that the more you push them down, the more you're going to have to watch for bubbles. Okay, 4 jars. Those 2 out of the way. And then soup ladle. Just gently pour it in. Alright, so we have 4 jars. You want to debubble them. You don't have to. I've seen lots of people say you don't have to, and I know you don't. But I do it. So do what works for you. It says to do it in the recipe, so when it's a brand new recipe, you don't mess with it, just like baking, right? So chopsticks are ideal for debubbling because they get all the way down to the bottom. There we go. I have seen some bubbles coming up here, so that's good. This also allows the peppercorns and whatnot to go down from the surface because they were all sitting right on the top there. So, there we go. Wipe off your rims. So this is especially important if you're making jams or anything with sugar or anything that gets sticky and stuck on the rim there, because it can stop it from sealing. At one point a few years ago, someone said that you're supposed to wipe the rims with vinegar, and I thought, oh well, that makes sense, it would sterilize it or whatever. And then what I found was that I was having about 25% failure rate on my seals. So, and then I went back into that group. It was a Facebook group, which is fine. And other people were saying the same thing. So that was the advice currently being given. And I thought, well, I've been canning for years and I've never done it, but you know, maybe. And you know, expanding into pressure canning and stuff, I should be more careful, I suppose. And yeah, a lot of people were saying the exact same thing. They were saying they were having all these jars suddenly not seal, and then one of the more veteran canners, you know, the grandmas we're all supposed to be learning from, she commented and said that if you apply some logic, some critical thinking to that, the acid in the vinegar can affect the seals, and there's been changes in how lids have been made. I think they're being made in China now. Not here to debate, but the rubber isn't as thick. And so I went back to not using vinegar, and now I have a very high seal rate again. You get the odd jar that doesn't seal, and that's fine, because that just goes in the fridge and gets eaten. Alright. You don't crank these down. You just throw them on. You know, finger, I think they call it finger tight. Same thing for pressure canning. Alright. Ready for the canner. So as you can see, this is not a little boil, this is not a simmer, this is a rolling boil. take your jars, put them in one at a time. You want to spread them out evenly. If you have any partial jars, they may float, but those are going right in the fridge anyways, so it doesn't matter. Some people say that you should fill empty jars with water to fill up your canner. I've never done that. I don't understand the logic behind that, but you know, whatever. Your kitchen, your rules, right? So there we go. I'm gonna put the lid back on and set the timer. So that's 10 minutes. The timer went off. Don't take the lid off your water bath and immediately pull the jars. Turn off the heat, take off the lid, wait a couple of minutes, whether the recipe says that or not, wait a couple of minutes. It allows them to cool just enough that you're not going to risk them shattering when you pull them out, basically. There we go. Our finished product. Make sure when you take them out, you put them on a nice sturdy rack somewhere, out of reach of little hands. And after they've all sealed, 2 already popped, so you listen for that pop of the lid popping down. After they've all sealed and cooled, I will take the bands off, wipe down the jars, and put the labels on and put them in the pantry. There we go. So I'm all done. All 4 jars sealed within a couple of minutes of coming out, so that's great. And feedback on the recipe, the brine is not enough. I actually had to pause the video once I put the brine in the first jar and I said, oh, I'm gonna be right back with you. I realized right then that I did not have enough to fill the 4 jars, even though I packed the Scapes in quite well. So the recipe as it is online is sufficient for 1 pint, not 2. So what I do for myself, because that won't change, right? So the recipe's wrong, it's fine. So what I do for myself is I go and I make notes on my printed copy, and also made note that I had, pardon me, 87 bulbs, or pardon me, I planted 87 cloves, so I have 87 garlic plants, and the Scapes from 87 resulted in 4 pints, just so that I have a general idea. And every year that'll be a little bit different, but it just gives an idea as to what you get. And so I've marked on here that this recipe is good for 1 pint, and yeah, and that I did not use the apple cider vinegar as well. So other than that though, it smells good, seems pretty straightforward like any other pickling recipe. So when I open the first jar in a couple of weeks, I gotta leave them sit. I will post a comment and let you guys know what we think of them, if they're worth doing, or if you should just go ahead and eat them all. Because that's an option too, but we're about to go away and I'm the only one here. Notice how quiet the house is? So I can't eat that many on my own. So I thought this is a great opportunity to try out a recipe. So I'll let you know what I think. Thanks so much for joining me today, and thanks for coming back to Coleman's Ridge Homestead. We'll see you next time. Here's the finished product. Taken the rings off, all 4 sealed, wiped them off. I just wanted to add this video onto the end so that you can see that the Scapes did settle down. I know that there was all the vinegar at the bottom there initially when they came out of the canner. That's super common. So as you can see now, they look like they should.